As we start to get glimpses of this new Green Bay Packers defense, it's becoming clear they're going to try and do something the rest of the NFL is afraid to do. The Packers are actually trying to be on the cutting edge of defense rather than follow a trend.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Terms apply. When the Green Bay Packers hired Dom Capers' stature in the NFL was secure. The lineage of coaches that he came from was secure. We knew what it was going to be because he was doing it. A handful of other defensive coordinators in the league were and had been running a version of that defense. When Mike Pettin came to Green Bay with Mike McCarthy, he brought a version of the Rex Ryan defense, which had, by the time Mike McCarthy hired him, had kind of run its course. Like the rest of the league was not dying to hire Rex Ryan or Rob Ryan or any disciple therein on that coaching tree. They were behind. And we know what happened with Joe Barry. Matt LaFleur wanted someone to run Brandon Staley's, it might as well have been Joe Staley, Brandon Staley's defense, which was a variation on the Vic Fangio defense. And Vic Fangio had a bunch of success, and Brandon Staley had a bunch of success, and then that begat all of these other branches of that tree and versions of it, and even guys like Robert Saleh, who came from the same coaching tree that Jeff Hafley belongs to, started adapting some of those principles, more of the quarters, more of the two high safeties, and that became the trend around the league. But what Jeff Hafley is, and what Jeff Hafley wants to be, is it's not that he doesn't want to be a trend follower. He believes in his version of the defense. And it's not just the Seattle cover three that really is where it kind of all started with Robert Saleh. That was the tree that he originally came from, and then he created this new branch of this new thing. But when you look at what he was at Boston College, and we've been trying to decipher like hieroglyphics what the Jeff Hafley defense is going to be, and it's actually not that indecipherable. He played as much cover one and cover three, so single high safety defenses, as any team in college football. And I wrote about a related topic today for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. The rest of college football, they live in a too high defense, a quarters defense. And Jeff Hafley talked about this right before he left BC, that he believed in his single high safety defenses, even as the world moved to these more two shell quarters coverage worlds to deal with spread offenses and RPOs. But 70% at Boston College of snaps were played in either cover one, so man coverage, man free, single high, man coverage, or cover three, single high, three deep zone coverage, and some variation of that. And of those snaps, or of all snaps, 43% of their snaps, they were in man coverage. They were in man coverage. Joe Barry, he played single high 60% of the time, so but less than half of those snaps were in man coverage. Teams have decided what you have to be able to do is stop big plays, and that becomes harder with single high safeties if you don't have the single high safety to do it. What teams trying to run the Seattle system found, the Legion of Boom, is they don't have Earl Thomas. It wasn't Richard Sherman and Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright and the front. They didn't have that either. But the biggest difference, the biggest reason Seattle was able to do what Seattle did for as long as they did was Earl Thomas. And then it turned out to be the case that once those linebackers started to get old or older, they couldn't live in a base defense world anymore. And once they went to a nickel world, they couldn't stay in that world anymore either. It was too predictable. It was too easy to attack because we knew, Kyle Shanahan knew, all the rules. And he used to absolutely thrash Dan Quinn in Atlanta because he knew all the rules and could play with all of your cover 3 rules. So you're going, well, it sounds like they want to play an outdated style of defense, that everyone decided this is not the right way to play. Au contraire. Because what he wants to do is disguise pre and post snap coverages to roll safeties, to start in a 2-high look, and all of a sudden you're in a single high look. Or you're in a single high look with one safety, and at the snap, you spin. Normally we think about spinning safeties, 2 high safeties, okay? And one at the snap or just before the snap, they come down into the box, and that one deep safety who's playing the deep half before the snap is now in the deep middle of the field. And he's playing single high. You can play any number of coverages from there. But your bases are going to be, man free, and then your cover 3 zones. That is too easy to attack if you know it's coming. So you have to be able to rotate those safeties. You have to be able to disguise pre and post snap where those coverages are going to come from. And we've already been seeing that from the spring and into training camp. The safeties have been a huge part of the story. Sean Clifford threw 3 interceptions just to Zane Anderson. Yesterday, threw interceptions to Evan Williams, bottled and bond, to Anthony Johnson Jr. These safeties are creating havoc in this defense. So it's not surprising that they went out and signed Xavier McKinney, that they went out and they drafted Javon Bullard and Evan Williams, bottled and bond, and Keaton Oladapo, who I think is probably going to play more of a dime linebacker role, as you heard earlier in the offseason from Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl. And on top of all of that, so the pre-snap disguise, that's not new, though that is something that certainly the Vic Fangio tree wants to be able to do too. That was something we thought we'd get more of with Joe Barry, and we just haven't. But then also we're talking about one of the most aggressive and one of the best designed blitz packagers in college football. Like, blew everyone out of the water in terms of red zone 6-man pressures. 0 pressures. He's going to bring the house in those situations. And part of that is because that's what Boston College needed to do to survive. But it's also kind of how the Baltimore Ravens play. They don't have one-on-one pass rushers and just expect guys to win. No, they're going to game you up. They're going to scheme you up. Now, they have Roquan Smith, and that really helps. And any defense is going to benefit when you have those linebackers that are capable of playing that way, but Boston College didn't. And let's be honest, Ohio State didn't really either, but they had corners who could play press man, and they had guys up front who not only could get to the passer by themselves, but then when you wanted to blitz them, they could get home. That's what Edgerrin Cooper is. That's what Tyron Hopper is. That's what Quay Walker can be. That's what Isaiah McDuffie can do coming downhill. They're not guys who thrive moving back, playing coverage like that. They're just not. the Packers, for once, have decided, yes, this is a 49ers tree. This is a Robert Saleh tree. But I don't expect this defense to look like any recent Robert Saleh team. I think there are going to be elements of it for sure. And I also expect Jeff Hafley to be able to adapt to his players. But the key to me is a willingness to say, we know what the trends are. We're not just going to follow the trends. We're going to hire a coach who can come in and say to the status quo, I don't care. I don't care. And what he's going to do is play a style of defense that everyone wants to play. When you play Madden, what do? I just had this conversation with Matt Ramage. On defense, what do? You engage 8, like on the regular. And I've seen NFL players tweet out that that's how they play Madden. That it's just like you want to all-out pressure every time. That's how defenses want to play. They want to dictate terms. They want to create chaos. That's how Jeff Hafley coaches. That is the opposite of how Joe Barry coached. And it's going to be a welcome change. It's already a welcome change for the Packers defense. Speaking of Matt Ramage, we had an interesting conversation on his live yesterday. And I posed this question and then immediately went, we have to talk about this on the show. I told him that I was going to bring it up and we were going to talk about it on the show. And I was going to say, hey, we talked about this. We didn't really get into the question. So I want to get into the question of the Packers receivers right now or the Packers receivers in 2021. We'll do that next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time because it's baseball season, baby. Plenty of games for you to get down with. And Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which means it's getting faster and easier for you to get to the game. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets because the last thing you want to deal with is anything that's not related to where do I get my peanuts, where do I get my popcorn, my hot dogs, my beer. That's what you want to think about when you're going to a game. Is my team going to win? Not, are these seats going to be what I think they are? Are they going to be what I paid for? Are there going to be hidden fees at the end that I'm not going to realize that all of a sudden the price is going to balloon because I didn't know what I was getting myself into? No, Game Time makes it easy. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time because the price actually goes down the closer you get to first pitch. Save up to 60% buying last minute. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Game Time today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This question of number one receivers. I don't know how I didn't think of it this way before. But this notion of wanting the Packers or believing the Packers needed to have a true alpha number one. I posed this question on X, formerly Twitter. Would you rather have the 2021 pass catchers or the 2024 pass catchers? And maybe if we were being maximally diplomatic, we would do 2020 because it would mean a healthy Big Bob Tonyan. But I think what I'm really asking is, would you rather have an offense that is dominated on one superlative talent? And in 2020, 2021, Devontae Adams was wide receiver one in the NFL. 2021 especially, it was clear. This is the best receiver in the league. And so you have him, plus you have your goon, as Matt LaFleur affectionately called him, Allen Lazard. You have your speed guy in Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And then you don't have a lot else in terms of dynamic pass catching ability. And your tight ends, you have Big Bob Tonyan, who I think it is clear benefited a lot from playing with Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur. And then Mercedes Lewis, a sixth offensive tackle for you as a blocker. That's how good he was as a blocker. And someone who could reliably catch the ball for you. We're going to keep the running backs aside for a second. So would you rather have that than what you have now, which is an offense that, at least for the moment, is full of secondary pass catchers? So I think you can make a straightforward argument that every one of the top 4 receivers at the very least, Dobbs, Watson, Wicks, and Reed, would be wide receiver 2 on that 2021 team. 4 guys. And then you still have Bo Melton and Malik Heath. And then I also think you could make the case that both Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave in 2024 could have had the type of season in that offense that Big Bob Tunyon had in 2020. And 2021 was different for a gaggle of reasons. So even if we're being maximally generous to the peak Devontae offenses, the MVP Rodgers offenses, the best offenses that we've seen the Packers have since 2014, which skill group would you rather have? And the overwhelming answer on Twitter was 2024. The overwhelming answer. And I don't know if that is just a recency bias thing because, we just saw it and it was a really good offense, especially by the end of the year. I don't know if that's because of the excitement over what Dontavian Wicks can be, and 2 really good days of training camp have done nothing to stop that hype train. I don't know if it's that Christian Watson, may be healthy now, or if people are like, it's actually fine that they don't have that top receiver. I don't know. But Packer fans seem pretty resolute that they would rather have this group of receivers. And frankly, I think I would too. If you have the elite quarterback. Like, I think Aaron Rodgers would be better in the 2024 offense than he was in the 2021 offense, just because I think having more options, you look at over the course of his career, that's when he's really thrived. 2009, 2010, 2011. Those were the best versions of Aaron Rodgers, even into 12, 13, 14, of course. But after that, he started to zero in on guys a little too much. And then especially in 2022. Now, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers, and I don't want to make this about Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know if Aaron Rodgers would play like Jordan Love in this offense. I think that's a reasonable question to ask. That Rodgers might prefer an offense where you just have one guy. I can use my skills as a quarterback, which are still, estimable. And just say, it doesn't matter what you do to defend this guy, I'm going to get him the ball. But we also saw what happened in 2021 in the playoffs when that was the goal, when that was all they could do. It was either Devontae Adams or Aaron Jones. No one else even got a catch in that game, in that playoff game that they lost, because they over-focused on Devontae Adams. I think Matt LaFleur learned lessons from that. I think Brian Gutekunst learned lessons from that, and I hope they did. I really, really hope they did. I would rather have the depth, because you're also always just one injury away. Like if that 2021 team, if they lose Devontae Adams, or if a defense comes up with a game plan, as we saw, the 49ers dared Aaron Rodgers to throw to anyone else, and he wouldn't do it. And if you had better players, maybe he would have. I'm not convinced of that. Because he had better players in 2022 and still wanted to throw to his friends. Now, maybe that was out of protest. I don't know. I don't. And I'm not going to pretend to know. But I do know that in 2024, if Dontavian Wicks, by the way, he got hurt last year. If Jaden Reed, by the way, he played hurt and was hurt last year. By the way, Christian Watson, by the way, was hurt last year. If those guys were hurt, the offense still functions easily, because you have so many guys who can play all these roles. On the biggest drive of the game against the New York Giants, Jordan Love threw a touchdown pass to Malik Heath. In the biggest game of the season to date, Bo Melton had the first 100-yard game of the year for the Green Bay Packers. In the playoffs, Romeo Doubs had a 100-yard game for the Packers after not having one all season. They were comfortable doing this and playing this way. Not every team would, and that's okay. And not every quarterback would, and not every coach would. But the Packers seem comfortable playing this way. And I think this is the best thing for this version of the Green Bay Packers. Now, would it be great if Christian Watson emerged as a star? If Dontavian Wicks emerged as a star? Yes, absolutely it would, because then you get the best of both worlds. Then you get the 2011 Packers where you've got the star player and all the star role players. And now you can have the 48 touchdown kind of season. And yes, that is out there for Jordan Love. That kind of performance, MVPs, people saying, hey, is he the best quarterback in the league that's not named Patrick Mahomes? Hey, is he as good as Patrick Mahomes? That's out there for Jordan Love as an outcome. Mostly because the media gets crazy. But Ryan Clark said this on ESPN yesterday. He said, Jordan Love and CJ Stroud are the kinds of talents who, for 1 year, can be the best quarterback in the league. And like Patrick Mahomes, over the course of the season, was not the best quarterback in the league last year. But if you just ask me who is the best quarterback in the league, I'd say Patrick Mahomes, and it wouldn't be close. So for one season, by the way, I don't think it was Lamar Jackson either. I think it was Josh Allen. But for one season, that's what that guy could be. And if you have one of these guys break out as a star, that really helps. There is already a little bit of a concern that I have about this team as we open training camp. And the Packers, they need to evaluate quickly and they need to move quickly if this is a problem moving forward. We're going to talk about that next. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV channels app. So, Rashawn Gary absolutely obliterated Andre Dillard yesterday. And by all accounts and reporting, was not very good the day before or in spring ball. This has been an issue. And if you go back to what he was last year, he was horrendous. This contract was a flyer. It was a shot to try and get a swing tackle in so you don't have to shoehorn Jordan Morgan in there if you don't need to. But the Packers have decisions to make along their offensive line. They have to figure out what their best five is. And that means inherently deciding on the best plan for their backup offensive lineman. So if, as I believe, their best five is Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Jordan Morgan at left guard, Elton Jenkins at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, and Zach Tom at right tackle, is Andre Dillard a capable swing tackle, or is he someone who, if he plays, is just a positional suck? Is he just too much of a net negative for you to put out there? Now, the problem is, I think that's probably already true of Royce Newman, but at least with Royce Newman, you have a player that you've seen and knows the system and knows his colleagues on the offensive line. There is at least some value and benefit to that, even if he's just like a borderline NFL player. Packers just reworked his roster or his contract. I've seen some speculation that makes it more likely that he's on the team. They reduced his base salary, and it's like $100,000 dead if they cut him. I think it was basically like, we're definitely going to cut you if you don't change this number. And now it's like, well, we'll still probably cut you, but now there's a slightly better chance because they're going to save the money either way if they cut him versus before versus now. But I wonder if this question led to that decision. Hey, we got to keep Royce Newman because he's the only interior offensive line swing guy that we have. Is Caleb Jones ready? Those decisions have to be made ASAP because there will not be capable people out there for you to find. And if there are, they won't be out there much longer. And if you need to try and swing a trade or something, or you need to go out scouting, they're always scouting. But if you need to focus on something, you need to know now, like yesterday. And so if Andre Dillard is not it, and I'm not saying he can't be, but I understand my blind spot for him coming out of the draft. Really like the athletic talent. Maybe he is just a guard. It doesn't seem like the Packers think that because he's been getting most of his reps at tackle. There have been some at guard. I think Royce Newman is going to be their swing interior offensive lineman, and Jordan Morgan is going to be, and then you have Josh Myers, but Josh Myers is center only. That would be the one downside of moving him out of the starting lineup is as a backup, all he is a backup center. And it's like, do you really need one of those? You really like your backup center to be a guard too. Which is a little bit what makes me worried about the backups here with this offensive line. Now, Jordan Morgan's presence, along with Elton Jenkins and Zach Tom, frankly, provides incredible flexibility. So, okay, you want to move one to one place and now you have another place and you can move this guy and my head hurts. This is like playing Find the Queen. But that is a nice benefit to have when you have Jordan Morgan who can play guard or tackle. What you don't want to do is say, well, Andre Dillard stinks, and so Jordan Morgan needs to be your backup, your swing tackle. But what you can do is if you play that starting five and you do have an injury with either of your tackles, you have to hope you've cross-trained your guys well enough that Jordan Morgan can go play tackle. You can slide Jenkins back to left guard. That should be no problem. You slot Josh Myers right back in at center, and that's the way you handle it. That's why you draft someone like Jordan Morgan, who you think can play tackle in a pinch. I don't know if in their heart of hearts, the Packers really think that Jordan Morgan is a tackle. I really don't. Because I feel pretty confident in saying they probably don't think he's a left tackle. Because he's not. But we'll see. We'll see. I think that's what makes the most sense. But I have to add this caveat. Every time we talk about offensive line, the Packers do not have a great track record of getting this stuff right when it comes to finding the right combination of offensive linemen. So, as always, I guess the answer is we'll see. Back tomorrow, much more from the first week of training camp. I've got some fun interviews coming for you. A lot of interesting stuff as we get you ready for the season. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Over on Facebook, we're there too for you all the time. And all over the social medias, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Go subscribe to our podcast wherever you get podcasts so you can stay locked on Packers.